So I'm going to share some sort of a recap of the past year, an outlook for 2016. Our goal really is that you would hear this tonight and be compelled to continue your faithful support of Just Hope International, compelled to maybe, if you have not already, start supporting Just Hope International. And as I shared with the lunch crowd, I'll say this also. I'll speak on behalf of Karen, if she'll allow me, but I know I've heard Karen say when she started Just Hope International in 2007, certainly we're going to talk about the mission of the organization. And we talk a lot about the people that we serve and how remarkable they are and the work that goes on with them. But I would also add about being compelled to support Just Hope International. Karen would also be blessed in her heart if somebody in this room tonight is served by this message. And you may hear something that leads you to go and start something on your own. You may hear something that challenges your own way of thought. So I'm just saying that to say that, you know, as you know Karen, and I'm sure most of you in the room know her well, that's really her heart. It is Just Hope International reaching the people that we serve, but it's also reaching you through that message. So I'm going to take a few minutes and just do a recap here. The exciting thing is that we're growing, and we're growing significantly, and that's a good thing. But as we know, when we grow, we have to stay focused on the mission. And so we always be mindful of that. The mission of Just Hope International is to make an impact that lasts by empowering people, remarkable people. That's a word we use often in this office. Empowering remarkable people who face some of the world's most difficult living conditions. Somebody says, well, maybe that's a little broad approach. How about getting a little more specific? Okay, more specifically, our mission, our calling is to economically empower people to generate household income. And we do that by identifying ways that take their interests and motivations and connect that with our access to resources. And so if you look in the world, all the unlimited need in the world today, and then you look at having limited resources to try to address that need, for us to accomplish a mission of making a lasting impact, we have to find people that want to do their part. And so our responsibility becomes finding people that want to do their part, but then humbling ourselves and listening to try to gain some level of understanding about their situation so that we can then work together and say, okay, let's find simple, repeatable, viable opportunities for the people themselves to pursue long-term without us. Because we can make an impact. We can do a flash in the pan, but what makes it last is the people themselves. And so that's what we're on the hunt for, are people who want to do their part. Empowered people pursuing viable opportunities to change their family and their community, if I can sum it up. So I think as I talk, if you could think about a few things. At the very end of the slide of the presentation tonight, I'm going to come back and talk about things like prayer, fundraising, traveling with us to some of these project locations. I'd like you to be thinking about that as I'm sharing some remarks. I'd also like you to be thinking about that thread of impact that lasts by economically empowering people, as that thread runs through some of these project recaps I'm going to share with you. The first recap I want to share is something that we don't typically find ourselves doing. I shared with you at last year's event that we had just purchased 5 ambulances to send to Sierra Leone in the fight against Ebola there. As Ebola was gaining traction and we were hearing about what the people we love in Sierra Leone were facing, we knew we had to do something. So the last thing you heard from us at an event like this was that we'd purchased ambulances. Well, in early January of this year, they were cleared for service, and in a 5-month partnership, there on the ground in Sierra Leone to provide a private ambulance service. Roughly 800 people were transported to and from Ebola treatment centers. Philip Crockett and I, Philip Crockett and I were there in September and had a chance to go in and sit down face to face, sort of recap with those partners in Sierra Leone, and we heard firsthand accounts of what kind of impact those vehicles had, what it allowed people to do, not just for transporting people to and from treatment centers, but for survivors. What do survivors do? They're now healthy, they have a certificate. How do they go back into their communities? We heard about the impact that it had on children who had been orphaned by Ebola. Mom or dad, deceased due to Ebola, now what? Those children taken back to extended family members in some cases, and in some cases, totally new families, although loving, but brand new to the children. And turns out ambulances need ambulance drivers. That was one thing, that was a nice byproduct that we realized. So here we are in a relief situation we're not normally in, and yet there are people stepping forward and saying, hey, in some cases they were Ebola survivors themselves. So they're basically immune to it. They say, I'll drive the vehicle. So there were jobs. Those people were very happy to have jobs, such as this man here. We're actually in the process of trying to finish selling the rest of those ambulances, recovering a lot of that cost, which from a financial perspective is good. And those ambulances, now that they're already in country, can go to some very worthy, great organizations there that are really more full-time in medical service. Our work takes place in relationship. And, you know, when we walk with people, we get a taste of what they themselves experience. So we've already talked about the devastation of Ebola on health and healthcare in Sierra Leone. The economic devastation, when you ask people there today, which was worse, the Blood Diamond Civil War or Ebola, a lot of them will say Ebola. It locked down communities, it stopped commerce, it just had devastating effects. Well, 2015 was supposed to be our big pineapple harvest year. We've been talking about it, excited about it. We're ready to harvest some pineapple. I mean, for Pete's sake, there's 90,000 of those things in the ground, right? We have a commercial buyer lined up. We're all ready. As we talk sometimes on the opposite side of this wall, there's a whiteboard. On the whiteboard in the conference room, it all made perfect sense. Well, the Ebola devastation took out our buyer. So now what? Well, as I said, when you walk with people, you get a taste of what they experience. In that moment of some significant crop loss and some really tough decisions, we saw the other side of the coin of the reality of the people we serve. That's when we saw resilience and survival. Now, instead of harvesting a truckload rather, of pineapple all at once to send to the processing facility to be juiced and shipped out to Europe, they're now looking to find new buyers. Who are our new buyers? How do we find them? And they find themselves profitably selling individual pineapple fruit out of the back of a truck that they've managed to rent. And in the meantime, people from a significant distance away have heard about the harvest and are coming to the farm to buy in bulk to then return to their village to sell for their own profit. So we had this great plan, and here it is, we're learning lessons from the local people. Someone gave me some valuable advice one time. They said, don't let the country, the location, or the circumstances fool you. People are a lot the same all over the world. You'll know what they believe in by where they're willing to invest their own resources. Well, not long after that harvest, we got word that Ibrahim Shaka, one of the workers in the pineapple plot, had already put the labor forward, cleared a plot, which is backbreaking work, and had taken some of these pineapple crowns, not the valuable suckers that people are still waiting on to this day to come out so they can take and plant those. He was taking the crowns and had already planted his plot. When Philip Crockett showed me this picture and I saw the techniques that he's using, that tells me he's willing to put his personal labor, his personal plot at risk because he believes in it. He's seen what's possible. He saw those buyers coming. He saw the opportunity. For me, that's success. I don't know how many crowns are in the ground there, but that says a lot. That picture is one of my favorites. And there's other people behind him who are ready to start clearing plots and planting their own. As we wound down activities in Ballia, this area of Sierra Leone, and sort of closed a chapter on those activities, we were learning more and more about really the dreams. Karen says sometimes the definition of poverty, how do you define that?
Poverty is the lack of hope.
When we first met these folks, they were, some of them had never had a job. Some of them hadn't had a job in the 10 years since the Civil War. And here we are, after they've worked with us and they've showed up and put in an honest day's work, received an honest day's pay, now we're having a conversation about their dreams. And they're saying, I want to raise cacao. I want to goat farm. I want to raise pineapple the way you've been doing it. And it's been a blessing really to do that with them. And we'll plan to walk with them. They're working on business plans. They've made their own personal investment. That may not look like much, but for someone in Ballia, especially that tin roof, that is a pretty good price tag to it. So they have skin in the game, and we will walk with them in these businesses to get them up and running as a viable means of supporting their family.
That's a goat house.
That's a goat house.
Thank you.
Your goat house could look like this. We've been saying we want to be ready for Sierra Leone when Sierra Leone is ready for us, and they are ready. So beginning next month, we're actually going to be working in the Lunsar area of Sierra Leone. This is not a group of pastors that just are sort of becoming active because we showed up. Over the past 5 years, these men have been party to and major contributors in a work to plant 50 churches and start 20 schools. Just in 5 years, they baptized 2,000 people. That's the honor of the work, is coming alongside people like this and saying, the look on their face when we said, we want to serve you as you serve others, it appeared at least to be a foreign concept. At the beginning of this year also, switching countries, our project manager, Peter Miller, said, guys, I'd like to go to Ghana, another West African country, and I'd like to explore some of my existing relationships there from a previous professional stint to see if there might be something for Just Hope. Peter went in February, and as a result of that trip, we agreed as a team that there are needs in the rural areas of Ghana that meet the Just Hope mission. And there's people there that are like-minded, leaders who are like-minded, and they want to partner. Think back to the work that was completed in 2014, where our project team had worked for the better part of the last half of that year to develop project plans specifically for scenarios like what Peter found in Ghana, which meant in 2 months' time, he was on the ground launching a new project. So Peter's there full-time. Some of you may have heard about or attended the behind-the-scenes event we had when he was in the U.S. here recently. His objectives there are really to empower people to produce and manage income. And they're going to do that through agriculture, and these savings groups like what you see here on the screen. So he arrived in April. He had some administrative setup work to do for the next month or so. And then really in the past 4 to 5 months, groups like this have met, and there's 98 people, I believe, today who have organized themselves. They've committed to meeting each week to save money with each other and to make loans to each other. It's not our money. They're not looking to us to fund it. It's their money that they save with each other and they loan to each other. So it continues on with them. To do this, Peter went in. He gets it done. I love it. He went in and he's hired and trained 3 local people. And it's these local staff that are going out teaching and equipping locals in these villages. That team of 3 has just now gotten the ball rolling with these almost 100 participants. They've also started a demonstration plot with a local college group, young people, about 50% girls, 50% boys, college students who see poverty in their neighborhood and want to do something about it. So they, with our own David Reeves, and Peter, have started a demonstration plot over there to demonstrate to some of the local farmers some of the techniques that can really have an impact on their income long term. In addition to that, Peter is working with 2 local entrepreneurs in the startup of 2 small companies. So again, it's finding those people who want to do their part and then seeking an understanding as to what exactly is it that we can do to help them and empower them. For 2016, our goal is to serve these 98 that are currently on board, continue to serve them with excellence. We believe, God willing, that that same staff of 3 is capable of reaching about 600 people. And so the power of that becomes, because of the group dynamic in West Africa, we know from our homework that the average house there is roughly 6 to 8 people. So you're really talking about exponentially impacting total numbers of people just by touching these 600. So shifting gears from Africa to Central America and shifting gears from rural settings to more urban, I'm going to move into some of the opportunities that have been presented to us most recently. Dan Hutz has come on board recently as Executive Vice President. He's going to chip in here in a minute and cover Honduras. He's been, as Philip's been doing quite a bit of work in Africa and Panama. Dan's been heading up a lot of the Honduras. We're approaching it as a team, but Dan's been running the point on that, so he'll chime in here in a minute on Honduras. In the country of Panama, we encountered teenage girls who've been sexually, physically, mentally abused. They still have dreams, but they're currently living in institutions, orphanage, boarding institution, and that's good for things like security, shelter, food, and love. But what the girls themselves have said to local trusted volunteers is, we're afraid of what is going to happen when we're too old to be here. They're fully aware of the violent crime in Panama. They certainly remember the abusive situations that are part of how they came to be at the institution in the first place. They're realizing their vulnerability and the clock is ticking. So we're working with local leaders there. Philip has been assembling that team to teach these girls how to secure employment and how to manage life outside of the institution. And that team has gone and looked, and we know that this kind of work has been done for decades, and so they've pulled sort of some best practices, found some organization that can contribute material, curriculum. But there's something that's often missing from that type of traditional life skills. And we think it's what our focus is, economic empowerment. So those life skills that people have done over and over for decades, certainly they have value and they have a place in our overall plan. But here's the difference. Here's what we believe. The girls' ability to produce an income for themselves Yes, coupled with how to make good life decisions. But the girls' ability to produce an income for themselves is what's going to present the greatest chance for lasting independence. To be able to not be dependent upon the young man who's pursuing them. To go out and stand on their own 2 feet. That's the real key we feel is at the core of these type of efforts. We like to call this, instead of life skills, maybe it's semantics. I think survival skills is a little stronger. That's what we're talking about. So in 2016, we'll work in 2 institutions there. There's probably 500 children of all ages in these institutions. Our goal is to work with 20. Let's work with 20. Let's do that well. There's plenty of need. And the same people that introduced us to these institutions in Panama can lead us to 20 other countries if the funding's there and we feel like that's where we're being led. For now, we're going to start with 20. Dan, would you share with us about Honduras?
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, first I want to say I'm just feel so blessed to be here and be a part of the organization that Just Hope has started and got moving along. And it's been said, the efforts in Central America we're making aggressive strides into Central America. We have several projects started, 2 projects I'm going to talk to you about tonight, and several more that we should be able to start talking about in the next couple weeks. And the first of which is in Honduras, which is a life skills or survival skills group. Like the one in Panama is catered towards the girls, the one in Honduras is catered towards boys. And it's an idea that spurred from a conversation I had with the guy, Raul Caracas, who's the leader of the Life Skills Group, back in July. And I was asking him, I've known Raul for about 3.5 years now from my trips down there. And he's had a life transformation about 3 years ago. And he grew up in some of the gang neighborhoods down there, a very rough environment. Didn't know his father until just recently when he regrouped with his father. And I was asking him, he's been involved in a lot of the mission trips that we've done down. And I was asking him, you know, what do you want to do? What do you want to do to give back? And he said, that's funny because I've been thinking about that. He goes, I'm seeing all these boys out here that grew up in the same environment I did, and I just have a heart for these guys because, you know, they have a couple choices. They can go into the gangs, they can go to deal drugs, they can go in there and be heavy users of drugs, or if they're lucky, they can go in and have some kind of education or learn vocational skills or have the opportunity to go to a university. And he said, if I can just reach out to some of these boys like people did me, I would be so happy to give back to these boys. So fast forward 2 months later, we've got a life skills house up and running. And we opened it October 1. The boys that are in the house right now, they come from backgrounds that are kind of hard for us to understand, at least most of us. One of the boys in there, he's been in and out of orphanages his whole life since he was 4 years old, hasn't had a mom, been through 4 different public orphanages in Honduras. And he aged out September 30th, which was the day before we started the Life Skills House. And it was just by pure coincidence that Raul met this guy 3 days before that. And he asked him what he wants to do. And he said, you know, he wants to get out, continue his education, because although he's 18 and he aged out, he's only in 10th grade. He's finishing up 10th grade. That's just how it is in Honduras. We're going to develop their minds. We're going to continue their education, whether it's high school, give them a chance to go to universities or vocational training, whatever they want. And then we're also going to teach them the general how to manage checkbooks, how to run your household incomes and so forth. You know, the trivial things that we take for granted that they have no idea how to do. So that's going to be the mind portion of it. The body portion, Raul's a guy that just comes across as a big teddy bear. I mean, he's the most likable guy you've ever seen, but Raul also holds the Central American Lightweight MMA Championship belt, currently holds that belt. So he's dedicated to his body, he's dedicated, you know, to the MMA martial arts. And these boys, most of them want to be a part of that, which is great because Raul owns a gym. And if they want to be a part of the MMA group, that's great. If they just want to come in there and do CrossFit or anything else, that's fantastic too. But the whole theory behind the body part is idle time is the devil's playground. So we're keeping these guys busy with the mind, the body, and the soul part, which is just pure discipleship which they're involved in Bible studies and just going through discipleships several times a week. I left something out on the mind part. We're also teaching these guys business skills to where they're going to work and be a part of a shoe distribution project that we have going on as well. So what they'll do on that, and these are all central locations, the house, the gym, and the warehouse for the shoe distribution. We currently have a container that's in the process of being shipped over right now that has about 10,000 pairs of shoes. So we're going to take that in, and the concentrated effort on that is microeconomics out to these outlying areas on the villages, anywhere from 15 miles to 150 miles outside of Progresso. So these are families that have been going out there earning $2, $4 a day at best sometimes, maybe having one meal a day. So we're going out, he's recruited, think of the classic hub and spoke model. So we have the distribution warehouse here, and we have all these different locations of people or groups of people that are going to participate in this program. So they'll come in, they'll buy the shoes wholesale from us, and then they'll go out and distribute them at a retail basis. So, and it's going to provide economic empowerment for these people in a way that they've never been able to achieve. This is a picture. We were out there a couple weeks ago, Philip and I, conducting interviews. This is one of the villages, Ray Molino, where the women are, I think there's 9 here. They're doing 3 groups of 3. So they're going to pool their money together. They're going to buy these wholesale shoes from us in containers of about 125 to 150 shoes. And they're going to go to local markets and villages and sell these shoes. And so we plan on getting 2 to 3 containers down there every year, and coming back in about a year from now. And the questions we asked were, you know, like I said, how many meals a day you're eating, how much money you're making, what about your kids, how much are they eating. And we'll come back in about a year and do a comparative analysis on where they are today versus where they were yesterday, where they are tomorrow versus where they are today, and determine what kind of economic impact we have. It's been rolled out in various other places throughout the world, and it's had tremendous success. So that's the project we have going on right now.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Dan. It's this time last year we were wrapping up pineapple, and boy, we were excited about pineapple. Still are excited. I still love that picture. And we were talking about ambulances, and ambulances was kind of a, you know, that was a heart matter, wasn't it, Karen? That was, we got to do something. And I'm just trying to figure out how to make this presentation shorter tonight. And we talked about it after lunch, and we just said we trimmed it down. There's just so much going on. That's why I said it's exciting. We're growing. But the challenge is to stay focused. We've got great people on staff. There's exciting times ahead, and we're prayerfully considering, where are we going? What is next? But at the same time, as we've said repeatedly, we've got to stay focused now on what we're doing and not have growth for growth's sake. I said earlier, please consider different areas of prayer. If you don't know that we have a prayer newsletter that goes out, we do. And we put things on there, prayer concerns about people that we're serving, things that are coming up as initiatives within Just Hope. So I'd ask you to consider that. Giving Tuesday, for those of you who are familiar with it, you'll know it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. You're going to be seeing some things from us in the way of a campaign to start moving into fundraising mode. We will do an end of the year ask, as it's called. The blessing we have is that private donors have made it possible that all of our overhead is covered. The challenge we have before us is, as a 501c3 public charity, all of our project costs are paid by public contributions. So that task lies out ahead of us in going out and securing those funds to fund projects in the future. 2016 fundraising event. This has been the only annual event that we've had as Just Hope International. In 2016, likely going to be October. We're planning now to have our first annual event that's purely focused on raising money. And then lastly, I would ask you to consider travel. If there's one of these projects that has resonated with you, you'd like to know more about, we don't run teams, you know, for those of you that just got back from a tour. As they say, this ain't a tour, right? This is standard lodging, you know, flying steerage. You know, you fly first class if you want, but we fly steerage. But if you want to go with us as we're working, as we're visiting, we'd love for you to come along. That's to us, that's a joy and a blessing for people to go with us and travel. So we'd love for you to consider that also. I feel no need to kiss up to my boss, but I want to say something. I think we should always stop and thank you for your faith and your obedience in 2007. Thank you for stepping out. Thank you for that ripple effect that you talk about, that you've impacted all of us, and the opportunity for us collectively to go out. These numbers are growing. We started talking about just 10s and 20s and 30s, and the number impacted is growing, and so I hope that continues to grow. So I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to you tonight for being here. Thank you for being patient and sitting, listening to our presentation. We're all available for questions tonight if you want to stay, if you want to email us later because you got to go. We're just thankful you're here, and we hope that you'll prayerfully consider how you can support us going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.